I guess on my hair, she look all right. And with that actually sitting there like this creams, and I had to have them, sis. All 5 of them. Here, I just had, we're gonna discontinue it, but I had to pick up their book of shadows, honey. Color grade makes cheap fan, expensive breeze, good times. Wow, so serious. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Torrence here, and in today's video we are playing with ABH's newest release. I know, I've been collecting ABH since Modern Renaissance has dropped, and even though I've collected all 5 of the Norvina palettes, somehow I've only managed to do a tutorial on one of them. So when they dropped the new Primrose, I'm like, Torrence, you haven't shown ABH any love lately. You got to get up on it. So got her right here, honey. ABH has switched things up, and look at her here. You have 10 eyeshadows as well as 2 blushes, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you a tutorial as well as my opinion on whether you all should grab this palette. I personally got this on a discount, so that was one of the reasons why I grabbed it as quickly as I did. But you may be wondering, Torrence, is this palette worth full price if that's what I gotta pay for it? So if you all want to know exactly how I achieved this look as well as my opinions on this palette, just make sure you continue to watch. Alright, you guys, here is the front of the packaging. As you can see, it is nice and simple, but it is very beautiful. It's a little different from things that we expect from ABH because this palette is a little longer and it has a textured front instead of the normal felt patterning that it has. I'm going to make sure I try to bring this a little bit closer so you all can see the detail and the texture on this palette. But so far, everything is simple and elegant. Up close, you can see how that design has sort of like a raised quilted pattern. It's not something that is over the top, it's just something you notice and I find very beautiful, but you may want to make sure that your hands are clean because if you have foundation or anything when you pick this up, it may cause staining on this packaging. On the inside here, we have 10 eyeshadows and 2 blushes, which makes this an eye and cheek palette. Just looking at the palette, it appears to be 6 mattes, 4 metallics, and 2 blushes, but on the top row, shade number 4, which is called Primrose, the namesake of the palette, is a matte purple with reflective particles. So more than likely it may come off as matte, but that is something many people would like to know. Some people aren't a fan of matte with sparkle formulas, so that is something I just wanted to point out. Also, with ABH, I've always known for them to have extremely soft shadows, but when I tell you, the eyeshadows in this palette are extremely soft. I've only done swatches one time. I usually do swatches one time over no primer with the finger, and you can see how big the dips are in this palette. This palette does contain, I believe, 2 or 3 times as much product as their normal palettes, but the formula is still extremely soft, and I recommend that you go in very carefully or do your eyes first. And I wanted to make sure I just gave you all a close-up view of the eyeshadows first, just so you can see the sparkliness in that Primrose shade, and you can see how big the dips are in just the eyeshadows with one swatch. And on the end, we have 2 neutral blushes, a lighter one called Grapefruit and a darker one called Saddle. I'm someone who tends to prefer a very loud pink blush, so this is going to be a change of plans for me, but we're going to see if these work. And this here is where the magic happens, honey. When I tell you, ABH makes some of the smoothest, if not the smoothest and softest eyeshadows that I've ever had. The creaminess, the pigmentation, everything is beautiful. But I must inform you, honey, because these shadows are extremely soft, those metallics get to flying with sparkles if you try to do swatches. We're going to see how they perform on the eyes, but just doing swatches, honey, I had to blow away flyaways like a mother brother. I'm telling you. Even when I was about to go ahead and record this, I accidentally bent my arm, so up here near my sleeve, let me see if I can catch it, some of that came off, and that's from that very first shade. So to me, he probably would have been a little more sparkly, but he still has full pigmentation, so it didn't break through. But I also wanted to make sure I came a little closer so you all can get a view of what the texture is like. As you can see, those metallics, they're rather smooth, but they are chunky, and I wouldn't say they're chunky, they're just very reflective, and more than likely you're gonna have flyaways. So I would truly recommend doing your eyes first or using a sticky base with those metallics. Alright you guys, it's time to get straight into things. As with all tutorials, all tools and products used today will be in the description bar below. First thing first, honey, I'm not gonna lie to you all. I am looking at this and I'm like, although she looks cohesive, I'm not sure everybody gonna be able to get use out of this palette because I don't see many dark crease shades. When I look at strictly neutral shades, we have these two here for mattes as well as this one here. These three here tend to have a slight purple undertone to them, and I'm sitting back looking at them like, I did a slight purple look last time, so we're gonna try to avoid those. And my main goal today is to see just how deep and dark this palette can get with strictly neutrals, because I know many women with a darker melanated complexion may be sitting back wondering, Torrence, does this work for me? So by testing this out on my complexion, I can let you know just how deep and dark things may get. So we're gonna try to start things off, because I used an orange shade last time in my last tutorial. I'm gonna start things off over here with this shade Honey as a transition shade, and we're gonna use that with our largest, fluffiest blending brush. And honey, just like ABH has always been, honey, this is a soft, powdery shadow. It's extremely creamy, but she does have kick up in the pan, so I recommend you pressing very slowly and take your time. But we're going to use this shade here, Honey, as a transition shade. I want to make sure I get y'all in view, because in my last tutorial, I started off without y'all being able to see things. I've loaded my brush up and haven't knocked off any excess product, because I just want to see how pigmented this color is going to be. And just like with ABH, honey, the pigmentation is truly there off rip. I'm glad I went in with this shade first, because to me, she's coming off a little more neutral than I thought she would. In the pan, she appeared a little more cool toned. But I'm loving the color we are getting with this. She is truly coming off as a transition shade. Just because I like to see how much pigmentation and blendability we're going to get, I am going to go in with a second layer. But you can look at that and tell she is stunning. You can see there's nothing on this side, a soft, beautiful blend. I didn't even have to go up and diffuse the edges, but you know I like to do so. And for this one, I'm going to go in one more time, and instead of having an extremely packed brush, I'm going to knock off some of that excess and see just how she builds with a small amount of product on the brush. And we're going to raise that brush up to help diffuse those edges. Because even if you come out with an ugly color story, you may not like the colors, but a seamless blend is always beautiful. And I would say she gave me a little more color on that one, but honestly, it seems like that first layer is truly where the pigmentation and blendability was, and I had no issues with it, so she's beautiful. Be right back after I do this on the other side. Next, I want to add a little more dimension to my crease. So we're going to take a smaller blending brush and use this shade here, Rouge, throughout our entire crease. Same as the shade Honey, we have some kick up, and because this shade is a little darker, I'm going to tap off my brush first just to make sure we go in slowly, and I'm going to start on the outer end on the lower part of my crease and buff this in just to see how much, oh baby. Now this shade come in with way more pigmentation than Honey, and I am so glad I knocked that off. If I would have went in with a full brush, I'm not sure how this would have turned out, baby. I know I would have been able to blend that out, but it would have been so much harder. So with this shade here, Rouge, yeah, take your time, sis. She blends very easily, no patchiness. But I am so glad I went in slowly. We're going to lift our brush slightly just to help diffuse those edges. And I'm getting what appears to be full pigmentation on this. On the second layer, I'm going to make sure I knock off my brush again, because I do not want to know what it looks like to overdo that color. So this time when we dip, try to press our brush even softer onto the shadow just to pick up the kick up. Knock off our excess, and just to see if this color is going to build, I'm going to go back in, and yes she does, honey. You may be able to go in with that shade Honey all loosey-goosey, honey, but with this shade Rouge, you're going to have to put a little respect on her name and blend a little slower. I am loving the blend on this shade. Alright, yeah, you can truly see we got depth and dimension on this side compared to this side with that one extra color. So I'll be back after I do this on the other side. Because I have hooded eyes, I really like to add depth to my lower crease and my outer V, but I don't want to go in with the purple shade today, so we're going to stick over to this shade here, Claret, and we're going to use this in the lowest part of our crease with an even smaller blending brush. Truth be told, honey, I didn't want to go in with this shade Claret, but they don't have anything more neutral and it's dark. And this shade, out of all of the berry tone shades, I would say is the one that has the least amount of purple. It's much more red. So we're going to hope that this comes off a little more red with the shades we already have there. But what I am praying for is some depth. I've already cleaned off my brush. Not cleaned off my brush, knocked off excess off the brush. And now that I'm going in, although I am seeing that red peek through, I'm not sure she's giving me actual depth in the color, in the crease. So I'm gonna buff this out first, then we're gonna take a look. But I really wish this came up a little bit darker off first impressions, because she looks darker than Rouge in the pan, but I'm not getting, technically there is some depth and some dimension here, but nah. Try to do this one more time. This time I'm not gonna knock off my brush. I'm gonna keep all that excess product there, and we're gonna build up nice and slow. I'm gonna try to get it pressed down first, then buff out. And like I say, yeah, she's definitely giving me some depth, but for my hooded eyes, I look as if, it feels as if I wasted my time putting this shade in. Probably should have went in with that deep berry, but I feel as if that deep berry is really going to change the tone of this palette and give me much more of a purple hue. And I just did purples yesterday, so we don't want to go through all that again. And I'm just sitting here just trying to make sure I diffuse those edges so I can see exactly where that crease shade starts and ends. And yeah, honey, she's definitely a little darker than this side, but not by much. Be back after I do this on the other side. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut my crease using my favorite NYX glitter primer and my Morphe M421 brush. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to try to focus most of this product on the front end of my lid, and going to cut rather high. Debating on whether I want to cut in front of my lids, but I think I want to go ahead and try to keep things rather simple because I am heading out after I do this, and I'm not sure how dramatic I want things to be. I don't want to take this all the way to the outer corner, so we're just going to slightly diffuse it right there, but not bring it all the way over. And I'm going to do this on the other side. Before I go in with my lid shades, I want to make sure I cover up my outer V with a little more depth and dimension. So we're going to go back in first with this shade Rouge on that blending brush and cover up the outer V. Then we're going to add more depth to the crease by adding in this shade here, Claret, with an even smaller brush. I have color loaded up on one side of the brush, the other side is clear. And what I want to do is take and just press this right into the outer V. I want to go to the outermost point of my outer V, and I usually go about one brush head width across. There should be little to no glitter adhesive here, so it doesn't look like we're going to get a very sharp line. And because I have this going today for something outdoors that I'm going to, I want to make sure that we don't have harsh lines. The only thing I want to be extremely focused is that cut crease. Everything else I want to be soft and beautiful. What I want to do now is take and load up an even smaller brush with that shade Claret. I want to make sure that I can take and deepen up my outer V, but we don't want to cover up that entire shade Rouge. So since Rouge comes all the way up here, what I'm going to do is start about halfway back, press Claret in, and then sweep backwards. I want you to be able to tell that that shade is a little bit deeper in the outermost point of the eye, but I do not want to cover up Rouge. I want there to be an actual transition. And even in the outer V section, I really wish I had a little more depth and dimension. I think in person you can see it a little bit better where that orange the color rouge gradiates into the color claret, but she not giving me the depth and dimension that I hope for. So I'll be back after I do this on the other side. I'm not even 100% sure on exactly which shades we want to put on the lids today, just because we're trying to be a little over the top and stay away from the purples. What I think we're going to do is take this shade here, Peony, and we're going to use this for the inner half of our lids. Then I'm going to take this shade here, Sparkling Amber, and use that for the outer half of the lid. Alrighty, and one thing about ABH shimmers, honey, is they're going to pick up and be beautiful on the brush. A few swipes and this brush is loaded with product. So if I get any fallout, that's my fault. But baby, I want to see the shine. I want to see the shimmer. And so I'm going to go in and press this down. And I knew ABH was going to be able to bring it to me, honey. If nothing else, ABH know how to make some pigmented eyeshadows, honey. Look at that. I still have product on my brush, so you know what? Just to be extra, we're going to go ahead and just pull that all the way over. Well, not all the way, we still want to leave room. Rude, I'm trying to do an eyeshadow tutorial and you out there dumping trash. I'll be back after I do this on the other side. Honey, let me tell you, Sparkling Amber picked up even easier than Peony. So I'm expecting even more shine. Let's go ahead and get into it. Gonna start right here in that empty spot. Oh yeah. Honey, she got more shine, but she definitely got more texture and more fallout. So I'm honestly glad I did my eyes first. And I'm glad I have a sticky base down because the fallout may have been even worse. But honey, she is the thickest, chunkiest, prettiest shade so far. Look at the way that beams. Even on camera, honey, you can't deny that color. Be right back. Actually, wait. Notice I ain't bringing this back far enough down here. Now we'll be right back after we do this on the other side. Now that I'm satisfied with what we have going on so far, I'm going to cut away, finish off the face, and when I come back, I'm going to show you how we're going to finish off the lower lash line. Alright you guys, we are back, and I want to tell you all about everything that I used off camera. As usual, all tools and products are in the description bar below, but I like to give you all a little preview of what I did on the face. For the blush, I did use the same palette here, and I'm truly just trying to see how pigmented things are. So I only went in with just the lighter shade here, Grapefruit. I have that on the cheek, and to me, you can tell that I am wearing blush. There is a nice pink flush there on the cheek. So I would say if you are my complexion or lighter, the first shade, Grapefruit, will work for you. I personally am not the biggest fan of neutral shades like this Saddle, so I did not put that on today. I just didn't want to risk it. But because that shade is much more deeper than this one here, I'm quite sure that that will work on a deeper complexion. But that shade Grapefruit, I'm going to say my complexion and lighter, you got it. If you're a little bit deeper, you may have to build her up because I do have 2 layers of it on here. So I would say take that into consideration. For highlighter, I wanted to stick with ABH, but I managed not to grab one that was full-time. This is their discontinued highlighter. This is in the shade So Hollywood. I remember this was the very first blinding highlighter that I ever purchased. And because they don't sell it anymore, I rarely use it. But if you look at her, a huge chunk of her is gone because I took some of this and used a spoolie and just grinded it up, honey. So I have some of this in loose form in a different container simply because I wanted to create a loose highlighter. But I no longer use this too often, but I have it here and you can see right there on the nose, honey, she is beaming. You got a nice lift right there on the cheek. And I really do like her. I'm not sure why ABH stopped making them because blinding highlighters were back in for a moment. Right now things seem to be more on the natural side, but I really believe if they were to bring these back, they would be a nice hit. For the lips, I sort of wanted to stick to ABH because I went in with my MAC lip pencil in the shade Cork. I wanted something nice, soft, and neutral. I didn't want anything competing with the eyes today. And the only lip gloss that I recall owning from ABH is this Honey Diamond lip gloss. This is their Diamond Lip Gloss formula. It's a clear with a gold reflective particle in it. And so it just went on nice right on top of this. More than likely, I am going to have to top this off before I get out to where I'm going today. But I didn't want to put anything on that, you know, will get within my mask because I have to put a mask on before I head out. And I know I would rather wait for all of that and then top this off with a little bit more. But I did want to show you all the shine and color you could get with these two as a combo. For the eyes, something basic. Once again, I'm testing out the Marc Jacobs At Lash Lifting and Volumizing Mascara that I used in the last tutorial. She's a sample, so I just want to finish her up, but I am telling you all, I love how long and spiky my lashes look. If I could choose between volumizing and lengthening mascaras, I personally would choose lengthening. If you wouldn't, I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, Marc Jacobs on their way out of here, so you may want to hurry up and grab it. And just because I wanted a little definition on my lower lash line, I'm wearing my Whiskey Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencil. Normally I would go in, what's this shade here? Demolition. I would usually use that for a dark brown just to give me more drama, but I wanted something nice and soft that would not compete with the rest of the face today. So we have that there. I think that's everything. I'm looking around, just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Seems that's it, so let's go ahead and get back to the lower lash line. Because I'm trying to avoid purples and keep things neutral, we're just going to repeat the same shades on the lower half that we have on the top half. So we're going to take our largest pencil brush in this shade here, Honey, and use that as a transition shade. Then I'm going to go into this shade here, Rouge, with a smaller pencil brush and buff that shade out on the lower lash line. And then to finish things off and give me a little more depth on the lower lash line, we're going to take a push liner brush in this shade here, Claret, for the final step. And honey, I'm telling you, when I first got into makeup, lower lash line was the last thing I was worried about. But once I realized the colors seemed to build up a little easier for me on the lower lash line than they do on the lid, I was in love. So I'm going to take my largest pencil brush. We're going to start on the outer end. And I just want to get this going. Normally my transition shades on the lower lash line aren't for show. They just help blend everything out. Make sure everything connects. You just want to take and make sure you have that color all the way across. Many times I have to go in with a second layer. I usually start on the outer half on that first layer. Let me get a little bit more. I dusted off too much of my product. And I like to start from the inner half on my way back just to build that color up. But anytime I'm working with deep jewel tones or anything like that, I always start from the outer end. Because to me, if you mess up, it looks like it may have been intentional if you do it toward the outer end instead of the inner corner. And I want to make sure this connects right here on the very outer edge so we have a seamless blend. Be right back after we do this on the other side. Now we're going to take the shade Rouge here on a smaller pencil brush, and because I remember this shade being much more pigmented on the top, we're going to dust some of that off because we can always come back in for more. And I want to start off right here and buff my way closer toward the center, and yet immediately you can see how much more pigmented that is over the transition shade. Make sure they connect on the outer end so we don't have that gap. And as expected, I need a little more color because this is a very small brush and I have large eyes. So we're going to pick up some product, dust her off, and this time we're going to start from the center. I meant from the front, and then buff this back this way to give us much more color. We're going to connect that at the outer end. Oh yeah, honey, you can clearly see that this side has much more smokiness than this side here. Be right back. All right, now we're going to take our push liner brush, and this is the smallest brush that I have. So I'm going to start on the outer end, and I want to get as close to my lashes as I can, and we're going to work extremely slow. We want to remember that this shade gave us some fallout on the top. He's doing the same on the bottom. So we want to work rather slowly so that way we get as little fallout as possible. And with this shade, I'm doing more of a packing motion than I am a sweeping motion because I want that color to just stand out. And doing so, she truly does. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this on the other side, but first I wanna wipe this fallout out right here, because what I do not want to do is forget about it and end up spraying on top of her. Oh yeah, she dusts away real easy. But I just did not want to risk having that red spot right there underneath the eye and look like somebody dotted me in the face. Be right back after I do this on the other side. For the last step, it's my favorite part of eyeshadow, highlighting my inner corner and my brow bone. For this particular palette, I'm seeing that the lighter shade is this shade here, Rose Water, so I'm going to go ahead and use that on the inner corner and the brows, but if I feel as if it's not giving me enough shine, I will go back in and use the face highlighter. Sis, let me tell you, the amount of product that comes up on the brush with these shadows, it's just unbelievable. You get a ton of product. My thing is just hoping that she's much lighter than the first shade I already got there. So we're going to start off. You know I want to go right there for that inner corner first when I have the most product. And baby, yeah, she beaming. I'm honestly feeling some fallout already. But yeah, you can see just how loud she is. And I'm absolutely loving her. So let me go ahead. I want to take this and actually sweep it and blend it into that lid shade. Oh yeah, honey. I'll be right back after I do this on the other side. Before I jump to my brows, I'm just now realizing we never used this shade here, Fire Opal. So I'm going to use that instead to highlight my brow bone. And because that shade does look like it may be a little bit deeper than my complexion, if need be, then we'll go in with the face highlighter to lighten things up a little bit. All right, and with this shade, honey, she's extremely pigmented. I did like half a swipe because I wanted to get the tiniest amount of product on my brush, and she still picked up a lot. So what we're gonna do is go in very slowly and very carefully. We're gonna try to put that right there. Oh yeah, honey, she way too dark for me. And she is pigmented, honey, like pigmented. So what we're gonna do is, now that that's on there, I'm gonna knock off as much of that off my brush as I can and buff her out, and then we will definitely have to go over that with another color. I just wanted to try to use every shade, and to me, she's pretty, but when you think of the term highlight and think it's supposed to be a little brighter than my complexion, she's not doing that. That ain't the palette's fault, because I did go in already knowing she was too dark. But I really am enjoying how she buffs out. She looks a little chunkier when she first goes on, and I didn't think she would buff out this smoothly. So I want to show you all. When I turn, you see there is a nice rose gold glow right there. But I personally just feel as if she's a little too dark and too noticeable for my complexion. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of my So Hollywood. Actually, I'm just going to grab what's right here on the mirror itself. I'm not even going to dip into the highlighter. And we'll use that to just barely lighten this color up. I'm going to put it right there at the very top of the brow. And you can see, to me, that looks a little more natural and a little more subtle. Having that So Hollywood at the very highest point helps tone everything else down, but still give it that glow. And then we're going to use the rest to just diffuse on top. Okay, yeah, to me that looks much more natural. Alright, you guys, it's time to set everything, so make sure you grab your sprays because you know I'm about to grab mine. Fix Plus to give us a glowy dew. All-nighter so things last all day. Cheap Fan, Expensive Breeze, Good Times. I'm going to give this a few more seconds to dry, and then I'll be back to show you all the final look. And this is the final look. I want to go ahead, give you all a full face view of things before I give you all my final thoughts. And I'm here to tell you, honey, not sure what to think about this palette. First off, let's just get into the basics of this palette. When you look at it, it says we have an eyeshadow palette. I'm saying pressed pigment, blush for face and body, blah, blah, blah. my main thing is, it is saying that each shade here is 0.005 each. When I look at some of my older ABH palettes, it is saying each one is 0.002 each. So when you think about it, you're getting 2.5 times more product per eyeshadow pan, which is amazing. If you are someone who knows ABH shadows, I've already told you, they are extremely soft. You can tell all we did was one swatch and use a little bit on the brow bone, and you can see the dip in there. But to know that you are getting 2.5 times as much product as a previous ABH palette, you would think, okay, that's worth it. I mean, the amount of money I'm gonna save instead of buying these palettes over and over again is beautiful. The problem comes in my opinion, how can I put this? The lighter your complexion is, the more you'll probably enjoy this palette. That's the nicest way to put it. First off, let's get into these blushes. Although this blush here, Grapefruit, works for me, this isn't something that I would personally use, but I'm quite sure it would work for me. So in my opinion, anyone with my complexion or lighter will be able to use this entire palette. The deeper your complexion gets, the fewer your options are going to be, unless you truly want to go in with one of these purple beige shades. With the palette being called Primrose, you can already expect some mauvey, rosy, berry tone colors. But for me personally, I tend to either like my palettes neutral or colorful. I'm not that blend them together, give it all to me at one point. And it's the same way for these blushes. I would have personally rather had this as a 14 pan palette the way their other ones are. They could have just cut this right in half and made those top two eyeshadows and given me 2 more deeper crease shades. So if someone were to say, Torrence, would you recommend this palette? There's nothing wrong with it, but I'm gonna have to say no. The thing is, this palette I believe retails for $55. I ended up getting it for $40 because also had a $15 off coupon. So at $40, I just got her simply because she was on sale, she was something new, and it piqued my curiosity. But truth being told, I didn't like this color story. She does nothing for me. When I think of warm neutrals, I'm not the biggest fan of oranges, but when I think of what ABH already has in their permanent line and how cohesive those color stories are and how complexion friendly they are, it's like, although this gives you way more product, the only reason I would recommend getting the Primrose palette is if this is truly your type of colors and your type of blushes. If you have questions or you doubt either one, the blushes or the eyeshadow palette, skip it, because ABH has the modern renaissance if you want warm neutrals. And when you look at this palette here, you get warm neutrals plus those berry shades, but you have colors that are deep enough for any complexion. This one is the palette that put me up on the brand. I don't like warm orange neutrals, so I barely use her. But anytime anybody has ever asked me, would you recommend this palette? Absolutely, because the color story is there. If I wanted to go in and deepen up my crease with one of these berry shades or this deep brown, I had the option to do so. I feel as if I can only get deep in my crease with berries in this palette, so I would much rather prefer to buy this one, even though I don't like the oranges. And to me, you get way more mattes in this palette if you wanted to do just a basic all matte look. But I'm like, okay, Torrence, let's say you somebody who don't necessarily like the berry tones, you just want neutrals. For me, if all you want is basic neutrals from ABH, get the Soft Glam palette. She got some pinky shades, she got some mauvey shades, but you know what she also has? Deep crease shades. She also has a black. I'm someone who loves a matte black smoky eye, so with this, I feel as if I could get a variation of the look I'm wearing now, but I personally feel as if it'll be a little more neutral, so I will like it more. And with this palette here, I can get it to work with any complexion. I'm not worried about how deep and melanated you are. I'm not worried about how fair you are. If you come to me and say you need your makeup done and I have this palette with me, I know I can get the job done. With Primrose, I'm gonna be questioning myself. Let's say you're the type of person who don't even care about a neutral. You just want that pop of color. You want to be over the top. ABH Norvina got us covered for purples. She only $5 more at full price of $60, but she comes with so many different purples and so many more options. You get 25 in here. Look at how purple that is and berry that is. It's some neutral golds and stuff in here and pinks in here like I got on my lid. So for $5 more, I can get a true pigment palette. But if I want to go just regular neutral, Soft Glam or Modern Renaissance. If you want a purple eyeshadow palette, get you a Norvina Volume 1. If you want something even softer purple than this, get the Norvina Volume 5. But for me personally, just because I'm on YouTube and just because I got it for $15 off and just because I'm a completionist, honey, I got it. But when I sit back and think about the fact that Torrence, you could take this back today and get your $40 back. She on the chopping block. I'm going to just put it to you like that. I'm not 100% sure I'm a keeper. I'm like, she don't match nothing else in my collection. I feel as if I can get this look somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with the product. Everything blends, builds beautifully. But because she's not my personal color story, because I feel as if I have better options from ABH, and because I feel as if she's not flattering on all skin tones, I'm going to say pass her up, honey. And with that, I hope you all truly enjoyed this video. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. Also, please let me know down in the comment section below if you all grabbed this palette. So far, I don't think I know anyone in my personal life who's grabbed it. I know a lot of people online who, you know, do YouTube and do tutorials have it. But most of the people I know have been saying the same thing. Like, the packaging is cute, but with that increased price tag, honey, I'd rather just stick to what I got that I know is good. And honestly, honey, I'm going to have to stick with y'all. So with nothing else, I hope you all remember to practice, continue to stay blessed, and until next time, goodbye, YouTube.